Hallelujah. We are live. It is CAD Live, episode number 32 with me, Troy Francis. Welcome to the stream. Hope you guys are having a great day. Hope you're enjoying yourselves, enjoying this beautiful autumnal stroke wintry season that we are now living through. Certainly in London anyway. I've been out and about all morning. I had to get up early and go into central London to go and do various little bits of business. So I've been out and about all day. And weather is looking a little bit gloomy. But what is quite nice is that, as I've been saying all this week, really, even though we are in a situation of lockdown, or this is a situation where there are increased restrictions, the truth of the matter is there are quite a lot of people out and about, and it's definitely not as barren as it was way back in the dog days of March when we were in the previous lockdown. So actually, I'm just thinking I don't even need to have these things in, really. I'll take that out, I think. So, yeah, it's all good. I've had a good day, productive day. Got some more work to do later, and then going to be getting a bite to eat, and, hopefully having a fun evening as well. So, welcome. Welcome to the stream. If anybody is tuning in now and you're watching this live, then remember that this is an opportunity for you to put your questions and comments into the chat. And if we get some nice juicy comments and questions, then we will deal with them later on in the show. And if you're watching this on the replay, then welcome and thank you very much for tuning in. We're going to go a little bit more dating strategy heavy today, a little bit more game heavy today, and we're going to talk about a perennial issue that gets touched on in this space, which is the issue of female tests, okay? Women testing men in the dating arena, why they do it, how you should react to it to be most effective in dating, and just everything around that, really. So that whole sort of subject area of testing. Now, this is, as I say, this is something that gets talked about a lot in the men's space. And this is an example, by the way, of one of those things where the naysayers of dating advice will say, well, dating advice is useless. There's no point, you don't need dating advice because all that counts as far as dating is concerned is your looks and your height. And so that anything else, there's no point in discussing because your looks and your height will be the things that will make the difference either way. JD, thank you for tuning in. Good evening, sir. Welcome to the stream. The naysayers will say, well, look, there's no point in dating advice or discussing this stuff because it's all, like if you're tall and you're handsome, then it's a no-brainer, you're fine. And if you're not, you are screwed, and not in a good way, okay? But this is an example this is just one of many examples of why they're wrong. Because if you don't know instinctively about testing in a dating situation or an initial interaction, if you don't know that girls will often test and you don't know why they test in these scenarios, then you're quite likely to come a cropper, which is British slang for you're quite likely to mess things up. And that's the case even if you are tall and handsome and good looking and all the rest of it. Now, there is, of course, the argument that women will make allowances for guys that they regard as being aesthetically attractive. And there is truth in that. But they won't make outsized exceptions to the rule, if you like. I mean, they will perhaps give the Chad a bit more leeway than they would the stereotypical, 4'2" dude who bumbles along into her wake or into her orbit. But at the same time, the reason that she's testing is because she's looking for certain characteristics. And if you fail the tests and you fail to demonstrate those characteristics, then there's a good opportunity that you are going to get blown out or rejected or passed over for somebody else. And that is the case whether you're, a good-looking guy, you're not a good looking guy, you're tall, you're medium your height, you're small, you're ripped, you're not ripped, whatever, right? Because she's looking at characteristics. And in a sense, when you think about it, this is another area that gives the lie to the whole it's only looks that count argument. Because if it were true that looks are the only thing that make any difference in this whole equation, then tests would not exist. Tests would not be a thing, right? And there would be no, they would never be discussed because they just wouldn't exist, because there would be nothing for the women to test, right? Because if all she's looking for is a guy who's, a Chad and is tall and is really good looking, then why would she then have to test? She wouldn't, because she can already see that this dude is tall and good looking. So there will be no such thing as tests. So the fact that tests exist at all, and they exist to the point where they are talked about and discussed, is in itself evidence that there's more to this whole equation than just the way that you look, right? So, I guess I'm preaching to the choir here. You would think this stuff will be a bit of a no-brainer. Apparently for some people it isn't, but it's worth saying. The very fact that testing is an issue at all is because you need to demonstrate other characteristics other than just the way that you look when you go into the interaction, okay? So, Len says, tell us your secret, Troy. How do you have a full set of hair and not graying? Genetics, lol. Well, possibly, actually, because my dad actually now, my dad is 70 now, and his hair is pretty much white. But for a long time, his hair still retained a youthful color. It's lighter than mine. It's more like a blonde color, but he still had good color, I think, through his 50s, even 60s, even into. So there may be an element of genetics about it. I think trying to reduce stress is important. Not drinking alcohol, I think, has really, really helped me in the quest for looking a bit younger than I am. What else? I don't know. Probably those things, not drinking alcohol, not doing drugs, not getting too stressed by being bogged down with lots of minutiae, as many other people of my age have been. All of those things I think have been helpful. But listen, it's going to go. There are grey hairs appearing. Nothing lasts forever, right? But grey hair can look cool. So I just saw yesterday the video that Depeche Mode put out. So Depeche Mode were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And they did an acceptance video where they were all on Zoom. The three of them were like on Zoom or whatever, because obviously they can't do anything in person because of the virus. And Dave Gahan, who is the lead singer, was in the center, and the other two were at the sides. And Dave Gahan now has graying hair. I mean, perhaps he dyes it when he's on tour anyway, but he's now got naturally graying hair, and he looks really, really good. I have to say, he looks like a boss. He's aging in a sort of distinguished way. Looks very cool. So I haven't really got a problem with graying. I think it's, it is what it is. I will doubtless accept it gracefully as and when it comes, or disgracefully, as the case may be. But yeah, I'm hanging on in there by my fingernails, but I'm hanging on in there at the moment. So JD says, my 6'3" height and relatively decent looks didn't save me from myself. Well, this is the thing. I mean, and I did a show the other day, didn't I, where I was talking about that dating show in the UK, where I showed you some screen grabs and pictures from that show, and how that dude, who was a good-looking guy and tall and all the rest of it, still managed to drop the ball and still managed to friend zone himself with the girl because he wasn't showing the correct characteristics, right? He wasn't exciting enough for her. He wasn't ballsy enough for her, if you like. Now, as the disclaimer, I have to say, people will, of course, say, yes, but you need a certain baseline level of looks. Otherwise, she won't entertain you at all. And maybe there's some truth in that. Maybe there is some truth in that. But you've just got to spread your net widely and keep going out there. There is going to be some woman out there who thinks you are kind of cute, and and then the dynamics are the same. She thinks you're kind of cute, even though you are 5'2" and you've got a hunchback and whatever. And you are still going to have to pass the test. So you still need to know about this stuff, okay? And I'll admit, I didn't know about this stuff when I was a younger guy. I didn't know about this stuff because I never read anything about it. I mean, I'd sort of experienced it, but I hadn't connected the dots. And so I would often fail tests and end up losing out on scenarios that could have gone somewhere, dating encounters that could have gone somewhere, because I wasn't, aware of the underlying dynamics, and that's a real thing. This is a real thing that guys need to know about. Now, some guys, they probably just get it, they probably just kind of like, they just instinctively know it. Maybe they were just always good at banter at school, and blah blah blah. But I think many of us don't know it instinctively, and we need to be taught it. We need to learn it. But the reason, anyway, that I wanted to talk about this was because I've been over on Reddit again, and this is from something called Purple Pill Debate Reddit, and the article is, or the post is called "Women Misunderstand Male Psychology When They Shit Test." So I thought this was kind of an interesting post to use as a jumping off place. I don't know quite where the writer of this post is coming from. I don't know if this is meant to be advice. It kind of reads like he's advising women. Perhaps it's even a woman who's written this thing. I don't know. But anyway, it's kind of interesting. So what the post says is as follows: women misunderstand male psychology when they shit test. Now, that, I have to say, that's a rather unpleasant term. As an English gentleman, as a man of culture and refinement, I prefer not to use the term. I prefer to just say test. I always think the S test is a little bit vulgar, but whatever, that was a popularized form for describing this thing. So yeah. Anyway, what he says, or what the person says, is giving an S test provides an opportunity for a man to demonstrate his strength. Correct. No woman is aroused by a spineless wimp. All right, well, I think we can agree on that. If he demonstrates strength, then you can comfort test to ensure he won't use that strength against you. Okay, so there are two types of test that are being described here. There is the shit test, or what I'm calling the S test, and the comfort test. Now, the S test is when she effectively throws something at you to see how you handle it. So maybe she throws in a slightly mean comment or a slightly critical comment, or she disagrees with you, or she asks you something in a sort of accusatory manner. Anything that's got a slightly negative tinge to it is an S test. And then the comfort test is the opposite. It's more like to see, okay, so I get the fact that this dude has his own mind. He's not a doormat. He's not he's not just going to roll over and kowtow to me, which is unattractive and spineless. But is he just too much of a crazy player, kind of hard ass kind of character, or is he going to be? Is he going to be there for me? That kind of thing. So the comfort test is kind of the opposite, and she will likely do the S test first to try to weed you out if you are, a spineless wimp, as the author says. And then she might do a comfort test, or she might do comfort test then later to see if you're, you've got the goods to be somebody who's actually going to stick around for a while and kind of be in her life for a period of time. Cheers. So we continue. So it goes, if he demonstrates strength, then you can comfort test to ensure that he won't use that strength against you. Then you can ensure that the man is, 1, strong, and 2, cares about you. Okay, so those are the two things. is he strong? Not physically, but is he strong mentally? Is he strong in terms of his boundaries? And number two, does he actually care about you? Is he going to stick around? Is he going to be, is he going to be there for, slightly longer than just one night or whatever? Okay, and then the writer says, there are several flaws to this logic. One, the easiest way to demonstrate strength is to be mean. The more you love a girl, the harder it is to be mean. Kindness is usually misinterpreted as weakness. Therefore, it is easiest for a man to pass an S test when he doesn't love you. Okay, so that's an interesting point. Basically saying, meanness is seen as strength. Niceness, as we know, is seen as weakness. So ironically, it's kind of easier for a man to pass that S test when he's not in love with the girl, because of course, when you are in love with the girl, then you are going to be, you're just naturally going to be not. You care about her. You're just naturally going to be nicer. It's harder for him to be, just a jerk, right? So if the girl is trying to find out, does this guy love me? Does this guy really into me? Then the S test doesn't work. But I suppose where the author is getting his logic skewed a little bit here is that she would surely do the comfort test for that. Okay, the S test is not designed to test if the guy loves her. The comfort test is designed to. But I take his point in the sense that what he's saying is, if you're trying to test a dude to see if he's a good dude, then doing a shit test, doing an S test is not going to work, because it's easier for him to do that if he's not really that into you. Okay, so that's his first point, or that's the person's first point. Number two, comfort tests can be faked. And number three, women often forget to comfort test if sufficiently aroused. So what he means by that, I suppose, is that if a girl gets turned on or excited by the fact that this guy seems to be this swashbuckling kind of bad boy, and she gets sort of excited by that, and as a result, then she just plain forgets to then test his comfort side of things. But I don't know. I mean, I've got some problems with this really, but we'll read on. Number four, sometimes non-TRP men, I suppose that means non-red pill men, will test for kindness, will test the girl for kindness by acting weak and then seeing how far you'll take it. Now, given that the person is using the word you'll, it again lends me to think that, or leads me rather to think that this is kind of advice aimed at women, because the person is saying sometimes a guy is non-red pill. He might test you. He might pretend to be weak in order to see how you're going to take it. And then if she responds in a very negative way, then he's going to say, right, okay, now I see what kind of girl she is. I don't want to take this any further with her. And then he leaves, I guess. So then in conclusion, the final paragraph, therefore, S testing selects for men that are more likely to use you. Seeing how a man stands up to other people is a much more accurate test. And actually, that last line I do kind of agree with, because, hi, Michelle, thanks, man. And I'm sure you are too. Thank you very much for joining the stream. And thanks, everybody, for coming on board. I'll go through some comments in a minute. So the final part of this I do agree with, because they're saying how a guy stands up to other people is a much more accurate test. And I think there's some truth in that. If you're going to give women advice, then you might say, well, look at how he conducts himself socially, generally. How does he behave around other guys? How does he behave in a restaurant when he's dealing with serving staff? How does he deal with an uncomfortable or confrontational situation, say in an airport or in a, I don't know, in a taxi or whatever, right? So there is some truth in the idea that perhaps testing is not the ideal thing, and the woman should just look at his other behaviors, on a more macro level. But the thing is, right, I mean, all of this is sort of a nonsense, really. And as commentators point out underneath the the OP. All of this is like, I mean, it's kind of interesting to discuss, I guess. But the fact is that women throw in these tests instinctively. Really, it's not particularly that she is sitting there going, right, at the 3 hour mark, I'm going to throw in this test, and I'm going to see how he responds to that, and then I'm going to throw in this test afterwards. I'm going to give him the double jab with this test here, and then I'm going to see how he responds to that, and then blah. You know, I don't believe in most instances that women are operating in that manner. I think that this is largely, as I say, instinctual. And also as well, something that's perhaps overlooked a little bit in this space is that testing, as much as it can be annoying and guys sort of complain about it, and it's like, oh, these bloody women, they're always testing me. It is kind of part of the flow of flirtation, isn't it? You know, flirtation is, to some degree, an inherently combative sport. You know, people are jousting, and it's that repartee. I mean, if you read, oh God, what's the Shakespeare play I just read? But there's a great example of this in Shakespeare, where you've got these two lovers who are, two characters who basically fancy each other, but they won't admit it. And they are just verbally jousting one another the whole time for the whole early part of the play. You know, like she's kind of giving him some, and then he's kind of coming back with things, and blah blah blah. And it's one of those things. It's like the school playground. You know, if you're chasing her around and calling her names, then it's likely that probably you're interested in her, and you know, vice versa. So as much as guys will complain about these tests, it is sort of embedded within flirtation anyway, to be a little bit difficult, to be a little bit challenging. You know, it's part of the repartee, it's part of the interplay. But like I say, I don't think that women are sitting there and being so analytical about this. I think that they just operate kind of on instinct and just sort of see how the guy reacts, and they do things largely because it amuses them. You know, and I suppose where it is a little bit not premeditated, but I think the girl often on the date, you know, if she is in any way attractive, she knows that she is a bit of a hot commodity. She knows that she can get a date with some other dude. You know, it's not like whatever. So I think sometimes girls will not abuse that privilege, but they will throw in stuff just to see what they can get away with, you know, because they know that they can get away with quite a lot, and they just want to see how the guy reacts. But if a guy just kowtows to her and just, you know, is like, yes, madam, whatever you say goes, blah, 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 then, you know, she's going to interpret that as weakness. She's going to interpret that as spinelessness. And, you know, it is very likely as a result of that you are going to get kicked to the curb. And even if you do end up, you know, dating her for a short while or whatever, it's, you know, you're not going to last very long. As I say, again, it's this is just one of the many dynamics that gives the lie to this whole notion that it's all about looks and it's all about height and that's it. Because if it was, then why would this be an area of consideration at all? Now, I suppose the cynic would say, well, if he's good looking enough and he's jacked enough, it doesn't matter what he does. She's still going to want to be with him. She's still going to want to stay with him. And I mean, you know, maybe there's some truth in that in the short term. You know, maybe she will overlook the guy being a bit of a puss because she's that physically attracted to him and she sleeps with him. But in my experience and just observing, you know, the world around me and other people's relationships and things like that, I've just seen too many examples of where a guy has weak frame, because that's really what we're talking about here. The guy's frame is weak, and, you know, she either just kicks him to the curb immediately or she entertains him for a little bit and then she kicks him to the curb for another dude who is more badass. And that guy is doesn't necessarily need to be as good looking, you know, like the guy who is a bit badass, but he's got that kind of vibe, you know, he's the looks becomes less of an issue, because what's really exciting her is that personality type thing. And this is the key to all of it, really. Nobody's saying that looks don't matter. Nobody's saying that looks are unimportant in the dating marketplace. Of course not. It would be silly to say that. But I think the whole debate, if you can even really dignify it with that name, is around the degree to which other factors come into play. And I mean, my observation, my experience of the world tells me that other factors, personality factors, not being a spineless doormat, that actually counts for quite a lot. It actually counts for quite a lot. And I'm not, it doesn't necessarily override looks, but it certainly evens up the playing field a lot. I mean, I remember, I've told this story before, but years and years and years ago, I was friends, or sort of frenemies really, with this dude. We used to work in this bar together. He was my boss for a little while. He was a short guy. He was probably maybe 5'6", something like that. 5'5", 5'6", short guy. Cocky as hell, though. Really, really cocky. Arrogant. I mean, to be fair, he wasn't bad looking. I wouldn't say he was Brad Pitt. I wouldn't say he was gorgeous. He wasn't like a model, but he had even features, clear skin, whatever. So he was, decent looking, okay looking, probably about average. Not a tall guy, not particularly jacked. I mean, he was in all right shape, but he wasn't like, some sort of like, like big sort of like hench dude. And I saw the way that he operated with girls. I was in his apartment one time, and his girlfriend had stayed over. A load of us had gone back to the apartment. There was another girl there. I slept in the sitting room on the pull-out sofa or whatever. His girlfriend was there, and in the morning, and his girlfriend was really cute. I mean, his girlfriend was a brunette, slim, great figure, blah, blah, blah. Really good looking girl. And he'd been seeing her for a period of time. I forget how long, but, like some months or whatever. And she was, for some reason, very angry with him. I forget exactly the details of this, but they were having this row. And right in front of me, he basically threw her out. He basically said, listen, I'm not doing this anymore. You can get your stuff and go. And she went absolutely nuts. And I'm sitting there like, oh, God, this is a bit awkward. But he chucked her out. Because he had that very strong frame. He wasn't that sort of dude who was like, oh, my God, but how am I going to meet another? Tell me, how am I supposed to live without you? It was none of that. He was just like, yeah, get going. I'll meet someone else, whatever. He was just really cocky. And like I say, this is a dude, 5'5", 5'6", whatever, and she went nuts, and, he threw her out into the street. And then later on, he told me that she'd come back to the apartment to collect her stuff, and she cut up his clothes and all this kind of stuff. She was really, really, angry about this whole thing. And, sure enough, he winds up, the next weekend, he's dating someone else. And it's like, so now, actually, I was taller than him, and arguably, I was better looking than him as well, and yet the way that he operated with women at that time, it outclassed me, because he understood the dynamics. I mean, I was a bit of a pretty boy at this stage. I had like bleach blonde hair. I was sort of like, I had very kind of baby face kind of thing. I was getting girls on the basis of that, or certainly I was getting, attention off the basis of that. And I was taller than this dude, like I say, whatever, arguably more fashionable than him, all of these different qualities. But what I lacked, well, I didn't entirely lack it, but what I lacked consistently, because I didn't really understand how these dynamics worked, was that sort of like that bad boy kind of ability to just be like, listen, it's, get lost, whatever. That ability to hold frame. Okay. I was just, my frame didn't even exist. Right. I mean, there was zero frame. And so that guy outperformed me, and that's how this stuff works, but certainly anyway, I mean, even taking me out of the equation, I mean, we used to work with a guy who was a male model, very, tall, good looking, blah, blah, blah. This guy would outperform him as well in terms of dating. Why? Because he was a cocky mofo and he had really good frame. And this is why I can never buy in to this whole argument about it just being looks, because it's just not my experience of the world. It's just not what I see when I go out. It's not what I've experienced in my own life, and it's not what I've experienced observing other people in their dating lives. It's just for me, it's a nonsense. It's the kind of thing that sounds right if you never go out and you never actually meet people, but as soon as you step out into the real world and actually test it against cold hard reality, you find out that the situation is infinitely more nuanced and more complex than just this broad brush sort of, it's all about looks and height and that's it, gloss that they want to put over everything. Adriano says, according to Incel TV, you need to cut your wrist off if you're under 6 foot. Absolutely. Miss Angelina says, I came in right channel. Shout out. Thank you very much. Shout out to you too. Ubik says, great sing. Thank you, sir. My singing voice is one of my great strengths, along with my model-like good looks. So maybe I'll do a Christmas single. I don't know. Let's see. Michelle says, but Troy, if I'm under 6'4", I won't get laid. Well, if you're under 6'4", if you're 6'4", according to that chart, which we showed, well, I put it onto Twitter. I might be able to do a screen share on it, actually. According to that chart, if you are 6'4", then you are a potential boyfriend, but you're not a shoo-in for being the boyfriend. You're just like a potential boyfriend. So I believe, according to this, let me just try and share the screen with you guys and see if we can do this. Hang on a sec. Let me just try and share so you can see this thing. Hang on a sec. Here we go. Yeah. So according to this, and this is taken off somebody's YouTube video, if you are 6'4", if you're 6 foot, then you're a potential sex partner. But notice the weakness of the language here. We're saying a potential sex partner. It's not even guaranteed. If you're 6 foot, then it's not even guaranteed that you will be considered sex worthy. Okay. But if you are 6'4" and above, you're considered, I guess then you're sex worthy, but you're considered boyfriend material. But you're not considered, it's not a shoo-in, right? It's not like, oh yeah, 6'4", that dude's going to get a girlfriend, no problem. It's like your boyfriend material. So according to this chart, and then underneath this, of course, you are under 5 foot, you're a joke, up to 5'4", slave zone, servant zone up to 5'8", friend zone between 5'8" and 6 foot. Yeah, so according to this, I believe the way I'm reading this chart is that you're not definitely going to get sex, and you're not definitely going to be a contender for boyfriend unless you're 7 foot. Because there's nothing here, like we're saying potential sex partner over 6 foot and boyfriend material over 6'4". So to be certain of the fact that you're going to be able to have sex with somebody and be their boyfriend, really, guys, you're going to have to be about 7 foot. Sorry to break that news to you, but apparently this is the world we now live in. You've got to be 7 foot. Otherwise, it's not definite that you are going to receive any form of intimacy. Okay, it's over, as they say. So yeah, be 7 foot, guys. And if you're not 7 foot, then click the affiliate link below and get some bone lengthening surgery. I'm not joking. I wouldn't do affiliates for that. But yeah, so where were we anyway? I forget. I put this chart up on Twitter the other day. People found it quite funny. It was pretty funny, really. I mean, Afro Surfer says it's accurate. I don't know. I mean, it would be good, actually. Is there anybody in the chat under 7 foot who's had sex? If you're under 7 foot and you've actually had sexual intercourse with a woman, put a 1 in the chat. See if we get any ones. Maybe statistically they're right. I'm not getting any ones yet. I'm not getting any ones at all. Okay, well maybe the stats are correct then. If you're under 7 foot, you are not getting laid. Sorry, guys. The Mish says, got to tell my LTR on plates. I can't be with them because I'm not 7 foot. Exactly. Oh, I'm getting quite a few ones. We're getting quite a few ones now. Okay, so amazingly, maybe it's just this channel. Maybe it's just the people that come onto this. Hey, Winston, good to see you, man. AC from KC, good to see you, mate. Ubik, Mr. Nibal, Eddie, Mark, good to see you guys. Thanks for tuning in. All of these guys claim that they've had sex and they're not 7 foot. So, maybe it's just this channel. Maybe it's the amazingness of my teachings, the teachings of the CAD system of dating that's enabled these dudes to have intercourse being under 7 foot. But, the rest of us, I don't know what we're going to do. We're just going to have to cope, I guess. Cope or rope, as they say. Anyway, I'm going off topic about this whole thing about testing. So if you're 7 foot, she's not going to test you. You're probably boyfriend material and she will probably have sex with you. Anything under that, you are, you're going to have to learn how to pass these tests. So, okay. So the one thing to say about this is that, as I said, he's identified, or the author of this has identified 2 forms of tests. So you've got the S test, and then you've got the comfort test. Now, in the main, the one that we need to worry about is the S test, okay? Because, to be honest, showing comfort is not a problem for most guys. Because most of us are pretty nice guys, okay? And I'm sure, we're in this loving, beautiful community here at CAD Live, and I'm sure that most of the CADs watching this are actually deep down pretty nice dudes. And that's how we're brought up. That's what society teaches us and blah, blah, blah. And, nothing particularly wrong with that, except that, as it said in that post, it can be misconstrued as being weak, okay? And that's not how we want to come across, which is why in CAD Academy, I teach Dark Triad and we talk a lot about the bad boy archetype because it's useful to be aware of that stuff so that you can kind of sprinkle it over the top, like you're sprinkling sugar on your cornflakes or something, You don't have to overpower it. You don't have to put half a ton of sugar on there, but it's good to be able to sprinkle a little bit of that flavoring over so you're not coming over as this kind of weak, spineless pushover. But, so comfort and showing her that you're a nice guy, showing her that you're there to look after her, showing her that you are a shoulder to cry on, you're not necessarily just going to disappear overnight and all that kind of stuff. For most of us, tends not to be that difficult, okay? It tends to be relatively easy. What is perhaps harder is doing the more badass stuff, okay? And the thing about tests is that they are designed, or their effect is to make you stumble and show off your nice guy side. And if you do that, particularly if you do it too early on, then there is a danger that you are going to get, you're going to get sort of kicked to the curb. So what is the best way to handle these tests? What is the best thing that you can do? I'm just having a look here at somebody sent me some examples of this, actually. my preferred way to get over these tests is really to ignore them. That is the key thing, you know? So often she will say things, and I've got some examples here because somebody sent me some examples. She will say things to try to throw you off balance. And the best thing to do is to simply ignore and just move the conversation on to the next thing. So there's an example here. You said that. Oh my God, are you that kind of guy? And if she says something like that, you said that? Really? That's a bit weird. Or something like that. She tries to throw you off your frame. Now, the wrong way to deal with that would be to backpedal. Okay, backpedaling is always the worst thing you can do. So, whatever it is, she's accused you of saying this thing, or you said this thing. Like, oh my God, you didn't say that, did you? Wow, are you that kind of guy? The very worst thing to do is to be like, no, actually, I didn't say it like that. I didn't kind of mean it like that. Or I apologized afterwards and blah, 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 and trying to sort of downplay. Because as soon as you try to downplay, then you have signaled to her very clearly that you want to impress her. Okay, so say you said something like, somebody asked you if you liked theatre and you said, no, I hate theatre. And she says, oh my God, you said that. Are you that kind of guy? Are you that kind of uncultured dude? You hate theatre? Then the worst thing you can do is then to backpedal and say, oh no, well actually, I quite like theatre. I was just saying it as a joke, or no, I was only messing around. Actually, theatre's pretty cool. I say, well, I said it, but he got what I was meaning, blah, blah, blah. Any sort of backpedaling, you're going to look weak. What you're much better to do is, well, the first thing you can do is to move on. Okay, it's just like I say, to ignore. So you're like, yeah. Anyway, have you seen those ducks in the lake over there? What about that? Or oh yeah. So Christmas is coming. What have you bought me? Just move the hell on. Don't even engage in the topic. But the second thing you can do, and this can also work, is that you just go with it. You'll just be like, yeah, I hate theatre. Theatre is rubbish. It's really boring. Sitting around on those cold, hard seats watching this old, boring stuff. Haven't these guys heard of Netflix? What's the problem? So owning it and just going along with it, even if you're going to disagree with her, is actually a pretty good thing to do, because when you do that, you're not trying to impress her. You're just being who you are. And even though, what if this girl's a theatre student? What if this girl is part of the Royal Shakespeare Company? Do you know what I mean? What if this girl is like, she's some massive theatre enthusiast, and you're prepared to go against that and say, well, actually, no, I think theatre's a load of nonsense. Really boring. Don't like it, blah, blah, blah. Much better to be that dude, She may disagree with you. She may think that she probably will think that you are an uncultured slob. But she's going to respect you more because you stuck to your guns. And listen, in the end, right, even if she is going to end up rejecting you because you guys don't like theatre, you don't like theatre and she does, which I would say is fairly unlikely, because if she's attracted to you on another level, then things like that don't really matter that much in terms of the dynamic. But if she is, then at least you've gone out. At least you've been, you've been pushed out by her, but you've held your frame. And holding your frame is really important, because not only does it often make you more attractive in the girl's eyes, but more importantly, it demonstrates to yourself that you have integrity, and too many of us, and we do this in social situations. It's not just with girls. We do this with, when we are in other types of social situations, or we're talking to dudes and things like this. We will backtrack and downplay and otherwise misrepresent who we are. So if what I like to do is not watch football, but I like to sit around reading Shakespeare, then that's fine. But if I'm then put into a crowded room with a bunch of dudes who are really into football and think that Shakespeare is rubbish and it's elitist and it's nonsense, it's very easy for me then to fold into that frame. So it would be very easy for me then to say, oh, well, you know what? Yeah, I kind of like football, actually. I like it a bit. And Shakespeare, yeah, I get what you're saying. Kind of a bit boring. Whatever, just one of them things. It's, like I used to like it as a kid. To be fair, I don't like it as much now. Blah, blah, blah. You start to fold into their frame. And the reason that we do that is because in the moment, because momentarily, it feels more comfortable. We're getting ourselves out of that uncomfortable social position whereby we are being, put on the spot, if you like. But longer term, I know I say longer term, but when you go home that night and you think back on what you said, you're going to be displeased with yourself because you are going to be aware on some level that you let yourself down. So, you've got to be yourself. You've got to be your own man. You've got to not fold into what other people think or what other people expect of you. Another classic example of what women might say to you, and this happens a lot when you get into social dynamics and you get into, going around and socializing more, meeting different girls and things like this. She might say something to you like, I bet you say that to every girl. Or how many girls have you said that to today? Or I bet you say that to all the women. So how do you deal with that? Okay, because, and this really gets to the heart of the matter, because what she's effectively doing is accusing you of being a player, or or at least she's sort of subtly shaming you for being a guy who perhaps does this kind of thing a lot. And again, it's very easy in the face of that. And as Winston says, at CAD, we don't fold, we don't bend, we don't break. 100%, man. We come in peace, we leave you in pieces. But it's very easy in that sort of, when you're being faced with an observation like that from a girl, to fold into the frame, be like, no, I'm not that kind of dude. I never do this normally. God, not at all. I'm I don't talk to women. What are you talking about? And in doing that, it may feel more comfortable to you in the first instance, but ironically, again, you're kind of making yourself less attractive because, of course, we know that due to pre-selection and due to the halo effect that a guy gets, or that any product really gets through being pre-selected by others, you appear more attractive, right? So, if you can appear pre-selected, she's going to think, yeah, this dude, obviously other girls like him, other women have liked him. That means he must have some inherent value. And that's going to make her more likely to like you as well. So if you downplay the fact that you're actually quite au fait with this stuff, and that you often have these kinds of encounters, and that often they go well, if you downplay that, then really you're shooting yourself in the foot. So what you need to do is to sort of like jokingly probably acknowledge it. Now, there's two ways actually about going about this. You can either exaggerate for comedic effect. So she says, "Oh, do you say this to all the girls? How many girls have you said this to today?" And you say, "Oh, only 15. You're the 16th, so I just changed the line a little bit," or something like that. You can do that. So you're acknowledging it and you're raising her, if you like. I see you always like this with women. I'm raising you to this. Or you can go the other way, okay? And this is what I will often do, but you've got to be careful with this, right? But you can take it the other way, and you can jokingly play up the fact that you don't do it. You're like, no, I would never do that. I'm such an innocent English gentleman. I would never I would never stoop to talking to lots of different ladies. What do you take me for? You know, and you can do that kind of thing. You can riff on that, but you have to do it so that she is aware that you are kind of joking. And the subtext of all of that is, of course I'm doing this all the time. Are you crazy? What, and that still then gives you that pre-selection bump. Okay. But she's got to know that if you come across seriously that you are somebody who never does this, and this is the first time you've talked to a girl, as I say, you're going to be unfortunately shooting yourself in the foot, even though that seems counterintuitive, but that is kind of the way things are. Another thing that you can do is call her out. And this is a more combative strategy. And it's not one that I particularly use very often or even particularly recommend, but it depends on the vehemence of the test. It depends on the manner in which she's speaking to you and everything else. But you can call her out on it. You can just say, look, I think you're being really childish, you're being silly, you're being immature, all of that kind of thing. And give her a bit of a ticking off if she's really being cheeky. Okay. I mean, there's no harm in doing that. It's very good to, it's very good sometimes to show that you're not somebody who's going to get messed around with these ridiculous tests. But I would say that is a distant third option. I think the best things that you can do really are to ignore. And then if not do that, then to acknowledge the test and own it. Okay. And those are my two preferred methods of dealing with these tests. People often think about tests in the first few minutes when you go up and have that initial interaction, and they can certainly happen then. If she's going to say something like, do you say this to all the girls? That's the kind of thing she might say when you first meet her. But equally, she may also test you when you sit down for that first date, because at this point, okay, you're over the initial hump. Not like that. You're over the initial bump in the sense that, okay, you've expressed interest. Maybe she's a bit interested as well. So you guys have met for a date, but she still needs to work out if you are a solid dude or not. She still needs to work out if you are the kind of guy that she's really attracted to. And so on that date, it is quite likely that she's going to be throwing in some tests. And this is why I often say the initial phases of a relationship, even a casual relationship, sometimes, especially a casual relationship, maybe, the initial stages there's a lot of play acting that's going on. You're parrying with each other like a sword fight. She is testing you. You are coming back to her with different things. You are to some extent playing a character. And I don't mean that. And this is where people are like, oh my God, you're saying just be someone else and all of that. And no, not really. Not really. But I would say that, at this early stage, because women do this as well, you are playing up certain characteristics. You're playing up certain aspects of your personality. You are showing yourself through the filter of being a somewhat, rakish, slightly hard to work out sort of character. And, because the reality is, like most people, when you come down to it, most people are actually pretty boring. They get up in the morning, they go to the toilet, they pick their nose, they read some stuff online. They, like most of us under the facade are sort of like, we're all a bit dull, really. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not what you want to be showing when you're first in the interaction with her. That's not, you need to be holding something back. You need to be creating a little bit of mystique around yourself. Okay. So it's not pretending to be someone else or being misleading or manipulative or any of that stuff, but it is looking at your marketing. It is trying to ensure that your marketing is such that you put yourself across as a kind of an interesting, cool sort of a dude that she might like to get to know a little better. Okay. All of that being said, Brave Bird FTW says, try Rocky the Shades. Thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in, sir. This is, I think, referring back to a previous comment. Remember that hate comes from beneath. If I may make a suggestion, chase excellence in all that you do and compete to win against the lads who are throwing shade at you. Absolutely. Unknown says, you mentioned a correlation between a person's height and success with women. What about weight? Is there somehow a correlation as well? Well, I was joking about the height thing. The height thing is this table here, which is taken from somebody's video. And it's pretty absurd because what this table basically says is, unless you're 7 foot, sorry, dudes, you ain't getting any. You're not getting any action. If you're not 7 foot, then you are not a shoo-in for either boyfriend or sex partner status. You know, if you're 6'4", maybe. But really, guys, you got to hit those. You got to hit those golden 7 feet. Otherwise, you are in today's dating market. Obviously, it's nonsense. Obviously, it's rubbish. Putting it up as a joke. Nobody. That's not a takeaway from this. Or the takeaway from this is that is rubbish. Clearly, that's nonsense. It's delusional. It's ridiculous. But this is the kind of thing that people out there actually believe and think. So, you know, it's kind of worth having a laugh about. But is there a correlation between someone's weight and their success? Well, I mean, listen, you know, you don't really want to be overweight. You know, I don't believe that anybody, I don't think there's anybody who finds, you know, as much as we have this whole big is beautiful and everything like that, the truth of the matter is really you want to be in shape, especially as a guy. I mean, it's been pointed out, if you look at figures, you know, like the male sort of figures through the ages, if you look at those Greek statues of guys, those Greek and Roman statues of warriors, and then paintings through the ages and all this kind of thing, the idealized male physique has not really changed in, you know, thousands of years. It's always kind of been the same, which is good definition, you know, some muscle definition, some, you know, being toned, being lean. Okay. Those are the key things. So there has never been, as far as I'm aware, I mean, like if anybody has got counter examples, please shoot them in the chat. But as far as I'm aware, there's never really been a time or a position when being a fat dude has really helped you. I mean, I don't know, sumo wrestlers, have they got status? I don't know. But you know what I'm saying? Like in the main. Basically you want to get lean. As you want to spend some time, do the cardio, do the resistance training, whatever you need to do, sort your diet out and get lean. Because being larger is only going to hinder you in 99.9% of situations. You know, that's just kind of how it is, right? Of course, I mean, there's mountains and mountains of fitness, health, nutrition advice out there. So, you know, but yeah, I mean, that is a key thing. Guys need to get on it. As What Is Hip Hop says, thanks, What Is Hip Hop, for tuning in. Yeah, don't be overweight, period. No body positivity for men. I think that's true. I did see a jokey meme where they had a mocked up picture of GQ magazine and some fat dude on the front with a can of lager and some cigarettes and a kebab or something. And it sort of said, big is beautiful. But in reality, of course, you never see that. You never see this for guys. So yeah, you know, get on that treadmill, guys. That's kind of how it is. Well, sumo wrestlers drowning in women. That's interesting. Is that true? That's interesting if that's the case. But, you know, let's face it, most of us aren't sumo wrestlers. I mean, maybe if you're a sumo wrestler watching this channel, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. But I think in the main, we're not. So that is a somewhat isolated case. But I am interested if that's true. And as Ian says, if you exclude women from the picture, you don't want to be unhealthy, unfit, and overweight. Messes with your focus, sharpness, confidence, well-being, sleep. 100%. Totally on board with that. Afro Surfer says, wrong, Troy. Dadboard, also known as B. Leo. I think he's joking about this. I mean, yeah, of course, we've seen some pictures of Leonardo DiCaprio with a somewhat dad-esque bod. But let's face it, he can kind of get away with it, right? I mean, again, most of us are not Leonardo DiCaprio. If Leo is tuning in, thank you for tuning in. Please donate to my Patreon. But, you know, like I think most of us aren't. So So yeah, in the main, we want to be slim, we want to be lean, we want to do resistance training. I like cardio. I do a lot of cardio as well, or I do some cardio. I do running and things. That's kind of how it is, Oh, I see. And then what his hip hop says, I think he means they are drowning the women in fat, the sumo wrestlers. Okay, yeah, I get it. The Quiet Place says, what do you think about college students in traditional society having less chances out of study to go to campus, and soon plates and LTR aren't that good? Like dating in campus circle, what to say? Are you talking about because of the lockdown? Is that what you mean? I mean, because like a lot of students here, they are they're at the university, but they are able to go out. I mean, lockdown aside, virus aside, they are able to go out and go to the local towns and party and whatever. Dating in the campus circle is, probably not a great idea, generally speaking. And also, why would you want to get into an LTR when you're in campus anyway? I mean, like we say, you shouldn't be getting into a long-term relationship at that age anyway, as we've said. You want to wait till you're about 35, really. You want to spend your 20s exploring. And thanks for tuning in, William. Cheers. Much appreciated. Good to see you as always. So, yeah, you don't really want to be in an LTR at that point anyway. Brave Bird says, do you know if an American accent is attractive to some British women? I don't really know. I think a bit, probably sometimes. I think exotic value of any kind is attractive. If she meets you and she's like, oh, he's American, that's cool. It's a bit different. I suppose that's attractive. I don't think it's a really big thing, to be honest. I do remember an ex of mine telling me about how she once got chatted up by this American dude, and the dude, I think, was from... I don't know. I won't say, because I don't know and I don't want to insult anybody. But he wasn't from one of the big cities, and she said that he seemed to think his accent was really sexy, and she found it a bit of a turn off. So I don't think it's a de facto. If you've got an American accent, you're in. But I do think that any sort of exotic value can be helpful. Because if you're, she's like, oh wow, this guy's American, that's cool. Have you been to Vegas? Do you know? Have you ever met Trump or something like that? Do you know what I mean? So I think it helps a bit, but I don't think it's a big thing. My Anonymous 5 says, I've been dating someone for a month now, 4 dates, still early days, 3 to 4 dates I've organized. I'm thinking, should I wait for her to plan mention the next one? Is there an S test here? Well, look, if you've been seeing this, dating, you've been seeing this girl for a month, you've done 4 dates, that's 1 a week. Have you tried to move things forward? Have you invited her around to your place to have a meal? Have you, suggested Netflix and chill, all that kind of thing? Really, you want to be moving things forward. This shouldn't be just an endless sort of succession of dates. And then are you saying 3 to 4? Oh, you're saying 3 out of the 4 dates you've organized. Should you wait for her to mention the next one? Well, I personally, I wouldn't have let it get to 4 dates anyway, without looking to move things on to the next stage, but in general, it is the guy's job to organize these things, to lead, to move things forward. So on that basis, I would say I wouldn't necessarily wait for her, because it's not really her job. It's, you should be the one pushing this forward. But I would say maybe ask her to come around and say you'll cook dinner and, do that kind of thing. See what happens with that. But I don't know where you are. I don't know what the lockdown situation is where you are, etc. So yeah, I need to know more about the circumstances, but that's my thoughts on that. He says Arsenal, Chelsea, or Tottenham. Chelsea. Bravebird says Americans don't sound as cool as British folk. Well, look, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad tidings. We do hear a lot about British accents being very popular with American girls. But I would say, on the flip side of this, certainly a lot of my American trips, my British accent hasn't. It's helped actually a couple of times. It has helped in a few occasions. But going to places like New York, going to places like Vegas, maybe Vegas, it should have helped more actually. But certainly in New York, I don't think people are that impressed because it's very international. They have lots of people from different places. They're not blown away by an English accent. Perhaps in some of the other places, like if you go to Georgia or Arizona or these places, it's going to have more traction. But yeah, I mean, like, all I'm saying is, if I'm completely 100% honest, I don't know of American accents in Britain being such a huge deal as English accents in America are purported to be. But I don't want to be totally negative. And I would say, you know, if you're over here or you meet a British girl elsewhere, you know, she might be into that. She might, oh, wow, I've always wanted to go to America. You know, like, exotic value is always going to help. I'm just saying I don't know it to be like a big thing in the way that they say the British accents are. But like I say, I mean, I've used my British accent and it hasn't always got me traction in the States anyway. So, you know, there you go. I love the Mancunian accent, don't we all? Ian says, little unsexy things done consistently for a long time will bring success. Lift, skip, swim, read, work on passions, go out and be social approaches, 80% repetition. That's true. I mean, you want to have your routine down. I mean, like, I read for an hour in the morning. Now that's my morning routine. I don't have cold shower. I do drink black coffee. I don't have a cold shower or do knuckle press ups in the cold shower, but I read for an hour in the morning. And that's kind of like, you know, that gets me into the day. I really like that. You know, I then try and do a piece of writing, which is really good because writing is my main thing. So, and I'm trying to now build more writing into my time again. So there's that. I will try to get some form of exercise throughout the day, hopefully that's some sort of resistance training gym session. It might be a run, or at least a long walk. You know, I'll try and get that in. I'll try to go to a recovery meeting or do something vaguely spiritual. So I try to get all of these things in, and also, you know, if you're in the phase where you're doing approaching, you know, you want to do daily approaching, like maybe just one approach a day, whatever. Keep the keep the pencil sharp, as it were. So yeah, absolutely, incremental success over time, really, really important. Suleiman says, do your Frank Butcher voice. Receipts, show us your receipts, you slag. What about a frog accent, French accent? Yeah. Yes, I mean, maybe that has some effect, you know, like, you know, I so beautiful, all of that. I mean, it's a stereotype, isn't it? Stereotypically, it's meant to have an effect. Girls, actually, I tell you the accent girls do quite like is Australian accents. I think girls over here tend to quite like Australian accents. So that can play well if you're Australian and you're watching this. Ian says, do you think the accent helps because it works with your English gentleman vibe rather than it's attractive in itself? Well, maybe, because I sort of tend to play that up a bit. But I don't know. I mean, it's just a kind of a bit of a meme, isn't it? That Americans like British accents. So I think, yeah, I try to sort of play up the whole thing. But I'm led to believe it's a bit of a thing just in its own right. I don't really know why they like it so much, but it is what it is, you know. Alfonso says, are you big on Albert Camus? Yes, I like Camus. I read the Fall recently, and I reread The Myth of Sisyphus. I'm going to read a couple of the others again. I've read some of the shorter pieces as well. I'm going to read some of the, you know, I've read The Stranger, so I'm going to read that again. And I need to read The Plague, of course, because, you know, what an appropriate book to be reading at the moment. So yeah, no, I am. But he's saying, what do you read? Well, at the moment, I'm reading Shakespeare. I've been reading all of Shakespeare. So I've got all of these Shakespeare books here. Some of them I read on Kindle, but I just sort of thought, you know what? I mean, I've read a number of them anyway, because at school and university and all this kind of thing. But I thought, you know what? I'm a British person. Everyone talks about Shakespeare, you know, I mean, Shakespeare is one of the greatest dramatists and poets really on earth anyway, but certainly is a British icon. And yet, who really reads all of his stuff? And I thought, well, do you know what? I'm going to read all of the boring history plays, I'm just gonna read the whole lot, and yeah, whatever. So since the summer, I've been reading Shakespeare, and I've really enjoyed it. Actually, it's been really good. I'm on the last one now. I'm on what am I on now? Much Ado About Nothing. Yeah, I'm reading Much Ado About Nothing now, and then that will be the last play, and then I'm going to read all of the sonnets and all of the poetry, and then that'll be it. So I will finish by the end of the year. Probably going to reread some stuff. I'm going to reread Hamlet, King Lear, The Tempest, and Macbeth. I want to reread just because they are, some of the key classics, if you like. And then that'll be it, and then I'll be on to something else next year. But so what I tend to do is the way I'm dividing it at the moment is I'm reading Shakespeare at the moment, but then I listen to audiobooks. And when I'm listening to audiobooks, it's a different matter. I tend to listen to non-fiction, and it tends to be like business-related stuff, maybe dating-related stuff, just more practical kind of stuff. So I've recently listened to all the Russell Brunson stuff, the .com secrets. I listened to The Science of Getting Rich, which is one that John MLD recommended. I'm listening to Maximum Achievement by Brian Tracy, which, to be honest, I'm not enjoying all that much. It's a little bit sort of, a lot of these books, they just break down to the same thing. It's all like, visualization, affirmations, be your best self, blah, blah, blah. And it's a bit like, I've heard this stuff so many times. But anyway, if you're an American, just go outside the US. Absolutely. Shakespeare is the president of drama. Indeed. And then Nibal says, what's your take when a woman wants to know about a man's past thoroughly, maybe as a value evaluation test? Well, I would be resistant to that because I would suggest that you don't want to give away too much in the early phases, because in the early phases, if she's sitting you down and trying to interview you, then that suggests that she is sizing you up as a potential sort of boyfriend, sort of provider type figure. And that's not the frame that you really want to have. You want to go in there as the exciting, swashbuckling sort of cad, if you like. And then after that, if you guys get on well and you like her and, you want to formalize it into a relationship, then sure, go down that route. But I would be myself, I would be somewhat reticent to be sort of sitting down and effectively giving her your CV and your life history in the early stages. I think that that's probably giving away too much. You're demystifying yourself. And like I say, it does sound like she is sizing you up to sort of put you into that boyfriend stroke provider type box. And that is, I would suggest, is not the box that you want to be put in really at the beginning. If you can certainly get into that box afterwards, and that's fine. But at the beginning, I think you need to have a little bit more distance, a little bit more sort of mystery around you. Okay. Fine. Okay. Listen, guys, I've got to finish now. We've done about an hour and 15. I've got to, again, I grab something to eat, and then I'm doing something a bit later. It's been awesome as always. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Remember to hit subscribe to the channel and also hit that notifications bell as well. If you're not subscribed, I know a lot of you guys aren't subscribed. Thank you ever so much for watching, but it really, really helps me if you subscribe to the channel so I can grow that audience, get the word out there, get the CAD message out there to the millions. Give me a like for the video, give me a comment below, whatever you want to say. You want to criticize my sunglasses, my, whatever, the more the merrier. Really helps out with the algorithm. On top of that, get onto my free daily email list, because I send out like a little article every day, a little piece of advice or anecdote or a little story or whatever. The link is below. So get onto that. And that will give you more information about CAD Academy. So the course, CAD Academy, is opening for Q4 between the 1st and the 5th of December. There's a limited enrollment period of 5 days. Okay, so you can get on that course that's going to help you to transform your in real life charisma so that you're able to meet and date attractive women more effectively and efficiently than before. Okay, it includes real life demonstration, 10 Zoom webinars where we're going to be dissecting your dating life and helping you out in real time. Okay, behind that paywall, so it's going to be a lot more hard. You know, we can be a lot more open than we can on this particular channel. Always a lot of fun. As we're going to cap it this time at 100 students, so only 100 guys can get in. So when we get to the 1st of December, you have to act quickly. The cost is $497. For that, you get 10 hours worth of video content. You get some of my books. You get other video content. You get access to those webinars. Plus, you get access to the private Facebook group, the private Telegram chat, etc. So it's a massive package, as she said, and it's going to be a ball, I can tell you, to finish off the year on Khan Academy. It's going to be massive, and it's going to take us into 2021 on a high. So great stuff. I will, of course, be putting out more info on that. But if you, in the meantime, to get on the waiting list, just get on my email list. The link is below. Thanks very much. Thank you to Alfonso. Thanks to Rollo K. Thanks to Boozen Barzen, to Unknown, to Nibal, to JCNF, to Ian, to Ubik, and to everybody else for tuning in. It's been a blast. Thanks ever so much, guys. I will see you again. Same time, same place.